It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Welcome in to a very special edition of Rico Brogna, live from Paris, or listening whenever you download your podcast from Paris, where I am recording this podcast after the Mets dropped Game 3 of the three-game series against the Yankees. We are recording this at about 9:30. But where I am, it's actually 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm getting used to this very, very late night baseball thing. But baseball is played very late at night. I mean, if you want to watch baseball in Europe, a 1 o'clock game is a 7 o'clock game. A 7 o'clock game is a 1 a.m. game. So it'll certainly be a challenging week as they get set to take on the Orioles and the Royals. But the Mets do win 2 out of 3 against the Yankees. Obviously, I am pleased. I think all of us should be pleased that they won this series. Coming into it, when you saw the pitching matchups and you saw what the Mets were going to throw at the Yankees to try to get 27 outs 3 days in a row was a daunting task. So I do start with the positive, which is they won the series. With that said, the finale of this series featured a lot of frustrations. And I actually want to start there. We'll work backwards. We'll get to Friday's game. We'll get to Saturday's game. We'll name our Rico, I'm the man now, star of the series. We'll pick a net negative. But even though it's Max Fried against the Met bullpen, and even though you go into a Sunday game kind of with that house money feel, I don't love saying house money, but yes, you already got 2 in the bank. They're throwing their ace. The Mets are going to use basically just a ton of relievers that are probably going to be DFA'd in the next week to try to win this series. And even when you're down 5-0 and you almost kind of wipe your hands clean and say, all right, it was what it was. This was kind of an unwinnable game. But then you see them fight back. And you see them make it 5-2, and you see them make it 5-4. And then there was a lot of little things that really contributed to the missed opportunities in not sweeping the New York Yankees. And the number one thing that jumps out at me, and I'm glad that Mendy was asked about it after the game, but the one thing that bothered me throughout the Mets rally late in the 6th, in the 7th, in the 8th, and eventually the 1-2-3 9th inning by Devin Williams was Mendy facing Aaron Judge in the 5th inning. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I know Mendy has had a strategy in this Subway Series, the 2 Subway Series that they played, in being aggressive in going after Judge. And a part of why they're able to go and be aggressive is that, and I think this was a key in the first 2 games of this series, the Mets did a great job of getting guys out before Aaron Judge came up. So think about the amount of times in Game 1 and Game 2 where Judge came up with 1 out, nobody on, nobody out, nobody on, 2 outs, nobody on. Like, there were a lot of situations in which Judge couldn't kill you. And clearly I knew Mendy was never going to pull the John Schneider, where he's going to basically throw the book out and start walking Aaron Judge with nobody on base or with a runner on first base. But in the 5th inning, after the leadoff double by Paul Goldschmidt, and after Trent Grisham grounds out to first base, there is a runner on third and 1 out. And you cannot sell me, Mendy, on any matchup that you don't like, because, well, it's Giancarlo against Brandon Waddell. I mean, we're already down by 3. Why would we put another guy on base? You do it because Aaron Judge is a walking god right now. That's why you do it. That one infuriated me. And before I could even explain it to my son Jed, who was watching the game with me, and say, hey, this is why it's dumb to face Aaron Judge, before I could even explain it, Judge is putting one in the left field seats. I'm sorry, that can't happen. And after the game, when Mendy was asked, hey, were you thinking about walking Aaron Judge? And he gives yeah, I thought about it. And his answer, which I'm sorry, I don't buy, was, we're down by 3 already, and I didn't love what was coming up next. And look, I agree. Giancarlo Stanton versus Brandon Waddell is not a great matchup. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it is. But right now, Mendy, if you are listening, this dude at 3 a.m. in Paris is telling you every matchup, every single one that you can come up with, is a better matchup than facing Aaron Judge. So you want to sell me that I'm not going to pull a Ron Washington or a John Schneider and I'm going to go after him with 1 out and nobody on base? Fine. But you cannot sell me or anybody else that with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, even runner on third, 2 outs, doesn't even freaking matter, a runner on third and 1 out, with Stanton and Bellinger up next, that you are not better off walking Aaron Judge and just taking your chance that Brandon Waddell gets Giancarlo to ground out or pop up or, dare I say, strike out. And by the way, if Stanton hits a 3-run home run, it is what it is. I mean, the guy's hit 1 home run since coming back off the injured list, and God knows he kills the Mets. But you cannot do it with Aaron Judge coming to the plate. And believe it or not, as much as that pissed me off, there were other things from Sunday's game that also bothered me about Carlos Mendoza. I like to call Sunday's game the missed opportunity game because despite the fact that it was Chris Davinsky and a bunch of relievers versus Max Fried, the Yankees ace, which on paper is a complete mismatch, despite all that, between the opportunities they had from the 5th inning on, this became a winnable game. But let's go back to the beginning of this game. He starts Chris Davinsky. Now, if it's up to me, and it's clearly not, if it's up to us as Rico listeners, we're yelling at David Stern saying, hey, could you have held Brandon Sproat out for a few more days so he could have started this game? Or, I know it's unpopular with some, but can you push Jonah Tong back a couple of games and call him up? But instead, okay, we don't want to call up a prospect, so we're going to do the whole opener thing again. Fine. I don't love it. I don't think anybody loves it. I don't think anybody that went to Citi Field on a beautiful Sunday afternoon loved it. But, okay, you go Chris Davinsky, fine. Guy who has experience, veteran pitcher, a guy that Hoff wanted to make the team out of spring training. And you get the 2 scoreless out of him. And I had no problem pulling him out after the 2. Like, you get your 2 innings from Chris Davinsky, and you say, thank you very much, sir. Let me go to my bullpen. You've got 8, 9, and 1 coming up. A lefty, a righty, and then a lefty before you get to Aaron Judge. And when you look at the Yankee batting order, that's the most left-handed part of it because obviously Boone started a right-handed lineup because Boone knew, hey, Brandon Waddell's the bulk guy is going to eventually come in, so I'm going to sit some of my lefties, specifically Ben Rice. And really Jason Dominguez, even though he's not a lefty, he's a switch hitter who's better as a left-hand hitter. And by the way, I know we're not doing the Hensley Mulens. Jason Dominguez not being in the lineup is a disgrace. I mean, you got to be kidding me with that, Boone, but whatever. That's not my problem, right? I'm off for a few weeks from WFAN, so I ain't even going to. I mentioned it. We can move on. But in the 3rd inning, why is he going to Zach Pop? Why? Brandon Waddell is your bulk guy. If you bring him in, the first batter he's going to face is a left-hand hitter in Austin Wells. Then he's going to face 2 righties, sure, and then Trent Grisham. So if anything, I'm looking at who's coming up in the 3rd inning, and I'm like, man, this is perfect. This worked out great in terms of you're going to go to your bulk guy who happens to be a lefty, and you're going to get a bunch of left-hand hitters. And for some reason, Mendy's going to Zach Pop, who shouldn't even be here. Like, why the hell is Zach Pop even on the Mets? So that one boggled my mind, and it's early. It's the 3rd inning. It's still a 0-0 game. But I did not understand why he wasn't using Waddell in a spot where it's lefty, 2 righties, and a lefty again. What's the point of Zach Pop? Like, is he thinking to himself, let me steal 2 innings out of Zach Pop and then I won't go to Waddell till the 5th inning? Is that the thought Mendy has? It's a stupid thought if that's his thought. So what happens? Well, the first thing this bum Zach Pop does is he gives up a home run to Austin Wells. Stunning. I mean, who could have seen that one coming? The guy's got a 13 ERA. He was DFA'd. And Waddell, who is a former I'm the man now Rico man star of the series, he won one a couple of weeks ago, has actually pitched well when the Mets have asked him to come in. And instead you go to Zach Pop to face a lefty. Hated that one too. I could actually argue I hated that more than the Aaron Judge thing. Probably not. The Judge thing pissed me off more. But what was that about? You getting too cute? Was he trying to outsmart Aaron Boone? Like, oh, everybody thinks we're going to Brandon Waddell second. Let me go to Zach Pop. I'll really fool him. And to make matters worse, okay, Pop gives up the home run to Wells. He gets through the 3rd inning. Even gets Aaron Judge out. I mean, praise hallelujah. That's incredible. And then the 4th inning gives up a leadoff double to Giancarlo. And he still keeps him in the game. You got Cody Bellinger coming up. You have a lefty, the other lefty, Cody Bellinger, who has just assaulted the Mets in these 2 Subway series, and he keeps Zach Pop in. Like, what the hell was that about? And Bellinger gets a base hit. Here comes Anthony Volpe. We'll still keep him in the game. He doesn't go to Brandon Waddell until finally Austin Wells comes up after DJ LeMahieu got the infield hit to stop first and third, one out. So he waits. He waits. I'm laughing because I was very pissed off about this. And as I'm talking about it, I'm laughing because I know that a month from now, if you go back and listen to episode 510 of the Rico, you'll say two things. You'll say, A, why are you doing a Rico Brogna from France? And then the second thing you'll say is, why are you talking about Chris Davinsky, Zach Pop, and Brandon Waddell, three guys that are probably not going to be on the team? And I acknowledge that. But I can still be annoyed that in the moment, with a chance to sweep the Subway Series, Carlos Mendoza is completely mismanaging this bullpen game. And he goes to Brandon Waddell, who really the only kind of mistake that Waddell made was listening to Carlos Mendoza and facing Aaron Judge and giving up the two-run home run. Because outside of that, to Waddell's credit, he pitched through trouble. He got a big out against Peraza with a couple of guys on base after he gave up that home run to Judge to make it 5-0. He gave up a double to Bellinger and luckily was able to get Volpe out in a big spot to keep it right there at 5-0. And honestly, did any of us think they were coming back at 5-0? Not really. The one saving grace, and this was a major credit to the Met Bats, who deserve a lot of credit for what they did this weekend because they scored a lot of runs. And they needed to score a lot of runs. Like that was their only kind of formula here to winning a game, or in this case, winning two games, was to score a lot of runs. And what this lineup did early on against Max Fried is they made him work. And so the small part of me that thought the Mets had a chance in this game was they made him throw a lot of pitches. And the Yankee bullpen has been a big problem recently. So I figured, hey, if you can get Fried out of this game by the fifth or sixth inning, you at least give yourself a chance, 9 outs, 10 outs, whatever it is, to come back against the Yankee bullpen. But look, the Met Bats in that fifth inning, and that was a tremendous rally that almost got short-circuited by terrible base running by Jeff McNeil when Marte hits one that Trent Grisham just, I guess he got fooled on. I guess he didn't see it well off the bat. So he lets a ball bounce off the fence that he probably should have caught. But even with that, you're Jeff McNeil. You got to see that there's a chance this ball is not going to be caught. And he was all the way back at second base as Grisham, I guess, deked him a little bit, but you got to score. And the big problem with that, even though right after Lindor drove in the 2 runs with the 2-run single, is that Marte was going to be on second base. If you see the replay of that double by Starling Marte, it was really a single, he's halfway around first base when that ball is fielded by Trent Grisham. So if McNeil can score, which he didn't, if Senger can get to third, which he couldn't, you're looking at a run in, second and third, and instead of the Mets just getting 2 runs back in that fifth inning, they have a chance to get 3. So let's not be fooled by the fact that, well, it turned out not to matter because Lindor got the big 2-run hit. Obviously, the problem there was Soto. Soto really began this series with a bang. We'll spend some time on what he did on Friday and a little bit on Saturday. He kind of ended it with a whimper because Citi Field is rocking. It's 5-2. He's the tying run. I mean, it felt like here is another kind of FU to his former team. And Max Fried kept feeding him curveball, curveball, curveball. Finally, Soto struck out. And then he got Pete Alonso to fly out. And so it was a good rally to make it a game because the fifth inning turned a 5-0 game into a 5-2 game and continued to elevate his pitch count 97 through 5. So it was productive from that regard. But the Mets left opportunities on the board, specifically Soto with 2 on and 1 out. After that, Huascar Brazoban had the shaky. Actually, that was an inning later. So let me get to the 6th inning when they made it 5-2. They got Fried out of the game because Fried hit the first batter he faced, Brandon Nimmo. I thought A. Boone was right for keeping Fried in the game because I think with the state of the Yankee bullpen, with them being on a 6-game losing streak, Max Fried's your ace. F it. Like, let him start the 6th inning with a pitch count of 97. And I even thought after he hit Nimmo, I would have pushed him even further. But at that point, that's where you see the Yankees take him out, and they go to Jonathan Loaizaga. And then, and I was stunned by this, this is now me not criticizing Carlos Mendoza, me just observing that, hey, I was very surprised that he pinch hit for Mark Vientos as early as he did. We haven't seen Mendy do that. And I think this is kind of a new stage in the Mark Vientos growth where Carlos will probably continue to play him to a degree, but against a righty in the sixth inning with one on down by three, he went to Ronnie Mauricio. So he not only pinch hits for Mark Vientos early, he does it with a 227 hitting rookie. And it worked. So my reaction, my first guess on it was not even to love it or hate it. It was more to be surprised. I was very surprised that Mendy pulled the trigger like he did. I'm not against it. I think Vientos is now entering a world where he's got to earn his playing time again. Like, I still mostly want to see him out there most of the time. But if Ronnie Mauricio is going to hit, which he did in this game, got 2 hits off the bench. If Brett Beatty is going to perform, and he's been incredibly streaky, but did have a hit off the bench. Starling Marte obviously had a really good game with 3 hits playing left field. And Marte is a part of this because he's in that DH role, and Vientos may be in that DH role. Vientos has to earn his playing time. And if he's not going to hit, A, he's not going to play, and B, Mendy's right to say, I'm going to pinch hit for you. But Mendy went very aggressive in that 6th inning because not only does he go Mauricio for Vientos base hit, he goes Beatty for Taylor base hit. And so they're all set up with bases loaded, nobody out. And McNeil hits that little roller that should have been played by Jonathan Loaizaga. Like, Loaizaga should have, A, picked it up on the roll. And then when he missed it, Goldie made a perfect throw to first base. He just missed it. So that was a big break for the Mets to get the 3rd run in and still have the bases loaded, nobody out. And I swear to God, I would have pinch hit for Sanger with Terrens. I get why he didn't. I think if you're going to give a catcher an off day, pinch hitting for him in the 6th inning is not really an off day. The Mets do have an off day on Monday, so if there's ever, and you have the All-Star break next week, so you got plenty of off days coming for this guy. If you want to kind of give Terrens a half an off day, you'd go to Terrens right there. Since you've already emptied your bench with Mauricio and Beatty, why not go all the way with it? But also think about this, and obviously the inning may not set up the same way, but if you let Vientos hit, which, let's be honest, most of us thought he was going to hit. Nobody in their right mind thought he was going to be pinch hit for with Ronnie Mauricio. But if you let Vientos hit and somehow the inning does develop the same way, now Mauricio is available to pinch hit for Sanger instead of going to Terrens. But not complaining about it, just an observation. But Sanger grounding into a double play was the worst possible thing. Because if he doesn't, and it's just a pop-up to right field or a strikeout or whatever the hell it is, now you're giving Marte and Lindor opportunities with a chance to tie the game. Once he grounds into the double play, yes, a run comes in. Yes, it's a 1-run game. But now you're fully relying on Marte, who was 3 for 3 at the time, to come through with another big hit. And he did. Hit the ball hard. Judge made the great diving catch. Yankees made some plays defensively. Obviously, an inning later, Cody Bellinger made the great play on the sinking line drive off the bat of Juan Soto, and then the great throw to throw Lindor out, which was just, everything about that was unfortunate. There's nothing to rip, nothing to kill. Like, Soto hit the ball hard. And he did. I can rip him for the 2 previous strikeouts because he didn't hit the ball hard. He struck out, especially against Fried swinging over the curveball with 2 men on base as the tying run. But in that 7th inning, he hit the ball right on a line. I mean, he looked off the bat, 2 on, nobody out for Pete, let's go. And instead, Cody Bellinger, who has, thank God the Mets don't have to see Cody Bellinger again. I mean, considering what he did at Yankee Stadium, considering what he did in this series, that beautiful catch, which really changed the game. The game completely changes on that diving catch by Bellinger, and then subsequently the throw to get Lindor out at first base. There was no point of challenging other than if you're Mendy thinking, screw it, it's late in the game, I got nothing to lose. It's such a pivotal play, maybe I get lucky. But there was nothing there. I mean, Lindor was out, clearly, and Bellinger made the play. Nothing you could do about it. Obviously, Brazoban gave up the insurance run, and the last few innings against Leiter and Hill and Devin Williams were just frustrating because you get the leadoff man on in the 7th, it gets erased on that double play. You get a 2-out walk by Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo immediately grounds out versus Tim Hill. You get a leadoff man on in the 8th inning, and right away you get that weird 3 unassisted double play off the bat of Brett Beatty, in which, again, it's just kind of unfortunate. It's just a ground ball right at Paul Goldschmidt, and Mauricio was just standing right there. Even if he wasn't, there's a good chance Goldie turned some kind of double play. And then in the 9th inning, I mean, you basically had John Bacon saying he had a dinner reservation because two of the strikes against Torrens were disgraceful. They were. Now, does it change the entire game? I don't know. None of us know. Like, is Luis Torrens going to end up drawing a walk? Is he going to end up ripping a base hit? No one has any idea. But Carlos Mendoza had every right to run out there and get ejected. That was, I mean, there were pitches out of the strike zone. Aaron Boone was proud in the other dugout looking over, saying, yeah, yeah, I would have been run for that too. And then obviously with Lindor up, my thought is, all our thoughts are, boy, can you just give me that Soto opportunity? Can we get Soto as the tying run, bottom of the ninth inning, final game of the Subway Series, final time Soto sees the Yankees unless we get a World Series, and Lindor strikes out on a pitch that was ball four. I mean, Lindor swung at two pitches that were out of the strike zone in that at-bat. Now, if we're being honest, is Juan Soto coming through against Devin Williams if Lindor gets on base? Probably not. Probably another piece of material for Yankee fans to mock. Not that they can really mock much with the way they played. But I think we all wanted the opportunity, even if we didn't think Soto was going to come through with the opportunity. As far as what Juan Soto did in this series, it was really game one and not much else. The home run in game one was huge and almost saved where that first game was going, that opposite field home run. But outside of that, it felt like maybe that home run was going to be a sign that this was going to be the Juan Soto series. He had a double his next at-bat, a base hit in the fifth inning, even had an RBI double late in game two. So he didn't have a bad series, 4 for 11 with a home run, a couple of RBIs, 3 RBIs. It wasn't a bad series, but I think it started in a way that made you think this was going to be the Juan Soto series. And it really turned out not to be. Now, going back to game one, I watched game one at the airport. It was a very fun experience. We flew a French Airlines. So a lot of the people on our flight were French. They were not American. So we were waiting online to check our bags, and I was watching the game. And I even had my scorebook out. This was probably one of the geekiest moments I ever had. So our flight was at 7 o'clock at night. So everything we were doing at the airport was prior to the game being over. So I'm at the airport watching a little bit of the game because our gate had not opened for our airlines. So I watched the first few innings of the game. Now it's about like the fourth or fifth inning, and we're waiting on this line to check our bags. And I got my book out. You know, kids are on their tablet. We're all content doing different things. And some French woman turns around and says, "Are you gambling?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, with the notes, "Are you gambling?" I said, "I am not gambling. I'm just a crazy Met fan." And this was so far, no problem. Like, what the hell does she know? She thinks I'm gambling. She doesn't know. Like, I'm not offended by that. Here's what offended me. She's like, "Oh, sure." I'm like, "What? Oh, sure." Like, no, I'm not gambling. I'm watching a Met game. I'm scoring the game. I know that's weird, but I'm not gambling. And then she starts giggling, points to her husband and says, "He's gambling." I'm like, why am I being accused of gambling? And the truth is, I'm not gambling. I'm just watching the Met game. And then the guy asks the weirdest question that I couldn't lie about. He's like, "Do you ever talk to the manager?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm screwed now. Like, what am I going to say? No? We just had the manager on, Carlos Mendoza, on the Rico." So I said, "Yeah, once in a while." And for some reason, that cracked him up and cracked his wife up. I don't know what was funny about it. I don't really understand. But yeah, I was accused of gambling. So those are the dangers, Hoff, of scoring baseball games while in public. People think that you're, somehow running a gambling ring.
So my guess is that they think that you were full of it. And when they're saying, "Do you talk to the manager?" and it's like, "Yeah, of course I do." And they're like, "This guy's a lunatic. He thinks he talks to the manager."
Yeah. Think I'm a lunatic. And meanwhile, I'm not going to sit there and explain myself. Like, yes, I speak to the manager. I do a podcast. I'm on the radio. Like, I talk sports for a living. I don't do that. If someone knows who I am, I'll gladly talk about them. But I'm not going to explain my job to somebody unless they ask me. I don't volunteer that information. Does that make sense?
No, of course. I mean, you don't need to. You don't need to get into all that stuff because it's just more of especially considering they don't believe who you are. They don't believe the fact that you're not gambling anyway.
Right.
You're gonna go with this whole thing. Yes, we just had a podcast. Carlos Mendoza was there. What's a podcast? You know, you don't need.
Not worth getting into. Luckily, we checked the bags, and then we ended up in this great lounge area where I watched the last 4 innings of the game. So when Jeff McNeil hit the game-winning 2-run home run, I was safely in a lounge, and that was such a badass moment by Jeff McNeil for a myriad of reasons. Okay, so number one, they're losing this game in the bottom of the 7th inning. And it's a wild game. I mean, obviously, we all saw it. It was a few days ago. Hoff did a great job on the Rico episode 509 talking about it. They give up the back-to-back home runs to start. And it's like, Jesus, this is going to be brutal. I mean, Justin Hagenman, like, what do you expect? They answer by tying the game. They take the lead. Then the Yankees tie it. Then the Yankees take the lead. Then we cut into the lead. And at that point in the bottom of the 7th inning against Luke Weaver, after Pete has that great at-bat drawing a walk with 2 outs and nobody on, like, my feeling, and I'm watching the game live, so this is one of those games I'm live with everybody, just watching it in an airport while not gambling. I didn't have a feeling we were winning this game. I had a feeling that the game was going to be wild. Like, I wasn't convinced we were definitely at that point losing 5-4, but I wasn't 100% sure we were winning, though the game did have a Matt Franco game feel to it. The Matt Franco game, obviously, we all remember back in 1999, a Saturday against the Yankees. I forget I think we ended up winning 9-8 or 8-7, but Posada hit the home run to put him ahead. Then Franco gets the game-winning hit with 2 outs. This game can't match it because the game winner was in the 7th, but still, it did have a very wild feel to it. But Jeff McNeil, as well as he's played, because I don't want this to be a knock, even though it is a knock, I don't have any faith in him in a big spot. So even though, yeah, the numbers are the numbers, you look back to really a year ago, Jeff McNeil has been a productive offensive player for this team. There's no denying that. But I still don't feel confident in him making that kind of magical moment. So he works the count 3-2, and right off the swing, I knew it was gone, but there was almost a delayed reaction from Gary Cohen on SNY. And then you see McNeil like pushing his chest out, screaming at the dugout. Very cool moment for him because he hasn't had a lot of that. I mean, how many big game-winning home runs or big hits has Jeff McNeil really had over the last couple of years? But that was epic. But the only way to make it work was to hold on. And you know there's no Edwin Diaz. You know there's no Ryan Stanek. Not that that matters that much. So the question once McNeil hits that home run, and they got a great effort from Huascar Brazaban, who pitched a scoreless inning. Austin Warren wasn't great, but he did supply 5 outs. I mean, basically, you're just counting the outs with Hagenman and Warren. But there's no end game because there's no one you're trying to get the baseball to. But Reed Garrett, to his credit, comes in against the middle of the order, gives up the 1-out hit to Chisholm with the 1-run lead, gets the next 2 guys out. Then comes out for the 9th, which I completely agreed with. I mean, I'm looking at the Met bullpen. I'm like, all right, Dickie Lovelady, Rico Garcia, Chris Davinsky. Like, those are your choices. And I could sit here and say, oh, they should have gone to Diaz. They weren't going to Edwin Diaz. They weren't going to pitch him 3 days in a row. Just wasn't happening. So I wasn't complaining about it. I wasn't begging for it. Yes, it would have sucked to lose this game with Reed Garrett on the mound. It would have sucked to lose the game with Dickie Lovelady on the mound. But I think back to last year when they won a game with Jake Diekman on the mound, striking out Aaron Judge. But I thought the best option they clearly had was Reed Garrett. And he did a great job. Got a little lucky because Trent Grisham hit a ball that was right on a line, but it was right at Brandon Nimmo. He got very lucky when Jeff McNeil made the unbelievable defensive play that, let's be fair, he's only turning against DJ LeMahieu. Like anybody else on the Yankees is running, they beat that out. And obviously gets Dominguez to ground out when he fell behind 3-1. I'm sitting there in the lounge. And by the way, the timing was terrible because my wife is telling me it's time to go. And we got to leave the lounge. We got to go board this plane. And I'm looking at her. I'm saying we're 1 out away. We got a 1-run lead. Just give me another minute, baby. And I'm also thinking to myself, if the Yankees tie this game, I'm screwed. Because now I'm going into pause mode and I'm going on a plane to France. So God knows when I'm going to get the Wi-Fi to repick this game up. But luckily, Dominguez won 3-1. I think he's getting crap or got crap from Yankee fans for swinging 3-1 or swinging at that pitch. I mean, look, I know you want to get Judge up. Obviously, we want to avoid Aaron Judge. The guy's hit 2 home runs in this game. Dominguez is thinking to himself, I could tie the game. But he rolls one over, hits it to Jeff McNeil, which was perfect, and they secure the victory. It was a great win. But I want to go back to something I said earlier about Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge's at-bats in the first 2 games of this series, he comes up with nobody on, nobody out when he hit the home run in the first inning of game 1. He comes up with 2 outs and nobody on in the 3rd inning. He comes out with 1 out and nobody on in the 5th inning. He did come up with a runner on first and 1 out in the 7th inning, and they did go after him in that spot. You go to game 2 of this series, 1 out, nobody on, 2 outs, nobody on. Then he came up with 2 on and nobody out, and they went after him. Nobody on, nobody out, runner on, 2 out. So they did, for the most part, a good job of avoiding facing him in big spots. The problem is, and it's a huge problem, is that for whatever reason, Carlos Mendoza never wants to pitch around him. I mean, they really don't. Like, go back and look at this series. He only walked 1 time in this entire series. How does that happen? He's Aaron Judge. You're only going to pitch around him 1 time? So, obviously, a lot of those situations were fine to go after him, but there's a few where you shouldn't go after him. Game 2 of this series was, to me, all about the offense. I mean, Brandon Nimmo hitting that grand slam in the first inning was outstanding. Took the pressure off Frankie Montas, allowed Montas to just be aggressive in the strike zone and give up the solo home runs that he did, which at 4-0 is a lot different than when you're in a 0-0 game. But the best part about Nimmo's grand slam was what it erased with Juan Soto. I brought this up in that one of the videos I did from Europe. By the way, my wife's idea, she said, hey, you're going to do these Ricos from hotel rooms. That's fine. You should do videos from all these great European sites and talk Mets. I said, that's a great idea, honey. And I mentioned this, and that is the Juan Soto bunt. For anybody who's listened to the Rico or listened to me on the air, the idea of Juan Soto bunting makes my skin crawl. It's horrible. And I hated it last year when he did it once with the Yankees. I actually had an argument with Sean Morash on the air about it. Earlier this season, Soto was showing bunt, or I think he laid a bunt down. I forget what it was. And we argued about it. This one was the most egregious I've ever seen. You have a guy on the ropes in Carlos Rodon who's put the first 2 guys on base. Juan Soto is pretty locked in. Remember, he had 3 hits in game 1. 2 on, nobody out, first inning, Soto's locked in, Rodon's on the ropes, and you bunt on the first pitch? First of all, I don't care what pitch it was. I'm just throwing that in there. You cannot bunt. If you defend it, you're freaking nuts. And don't give me, well, it was productive, 2nd and 3rd. Stop. It's Juan Soto. It cannot happen. It cannot happen in the first inning. It cannot happen in any inning. It cannot happen when he's hot. It cannot happen when you have a starter on the ropes. It was horrific. The good news, after Pete Alonso walked, Brandon Nimmo with a grand slam. And the beautiful part about the grand slam is we can all forget about it, but I don't forget about it because I never want to see it again. Let me ask you guys a question for the 2 people that are out there who actually say, well, it's productive. It's little ball. Could you imagine if Brandon Nimmo bounced into a double play? Could you imagine? Or Pete Alonso struck out. Or Brandon popped up. Or whatever it is that forces the Mets to not score a run. And we've seen plenty of times where they'd have 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, not score a run. What would you be saying? Would you be blaming Brandon Nimmo? Would you be blaming Mark Vientos? Or would you not be saying, why did the $800 million man who's locked in, he's not even slumping, why is he laying down a bunt? It was garbage. And I'm hoping he never does it again. That's my hope. I'm glad Brandon hit a home run, and I'm really glad that this offense, and this is the story of the Subway Series, and it was certainly the story of Game 2, the offense showed up. All year long when the Mets would lose games, I would sit here on the Rico and say, even if the pitching didn't pitch well, I would mostly say this is on the offense. There needs to be games where they score 11 or 12 runs and win, 7 or 8 runs and win. Like, you cannot rely on your starting pitching being amazing every time out. Well, in game one, they have to use Justin Hagenman, who goes 4 1/3 innings, 4 runs. No one would call that a good performance. But considering you're asking a AAA pitcher who isn't even that good at AAA to come up and make a start against the Yankee offense that averages 5 runs per game, you'd say 4 1/3 innings, 4 runs keeps you in the game. And the Mets scored 6 runs. So the Mets win the game because their offense scores just enough. You go to game 2. Frankie Montas ends up pitching 5 2/3 innings, 4 runs. Not a great outing. But when you score a lot of runs, which the Mets did, 12 of them to be exact, you win a game with your offense. And honestly, even the finale that they lost, like, they scored 3 runs against Max Fried. They were in position late in the game to win this game with their offense. This was a very encouraging series in terms of this offense going out and scoring runs and winning a couple of games. Because I'm going to do the math for you. This is going to blow your mind, even though I think everybody knows it already, but you want to think about this. The Mets had to get 27 outs in 3 different games. So what's 27 times 3? 54, 64, 74, 81 outs. They had to get 81 outs in this series. Let's play a game. How many of those outs in this series was recorded by pitchers that are going to be on the Mets next week? Think about that for a second. How many of the outs were actually recorded by people that will be here not a year from now, a week from now? Let's play the game. Game 1 of this series, Justin Hagenman pitched 4 1/3 innings. He got 17 outs. Justin Hagenman isn't going to be on the team next week. He may not even be on the team on Tuesday. They got an inning and 2/3 from Austin Warren, who is not on the team anymore. He's already gone. They got a scoreless out of Brazaban and 2 out of Reed Garrett. Okay, those guys are here. So in game 1, we'll do the innings instead of the outs. I think that's easier math. 6 of the 9 innings on Friday were recorded by guys that will not be on the team next week, let alone Tuesday. And they won the game. Let's go to Saturday. On Saturday, it's a little bit different because they got 5 2/3 out of Frankie Montas. They got an inning out of Edwin Diaz, inning out of Stanek. So 7 2/3 innings from guys who will be here. But they got an inning and a third from guys who won't be. Chris Davinsky and Dickie Lovelady. Very good chance that both of those guys, Lovelady probably DFA'd, especially when Brooks Raley returns, and Davinsky, who has done a fine job, could actually stick around. Like, I wouldn't rule it out because he's pitched well, but there's also a really good chance he gets returned to AAA. So game 2, a little bit different. But still, 6 innings in game 1, and now we're talking about an inning and a third in game 2. So we're up to 7 1/3 innings of guys who will not be here next week. And then let's go to the finale of this series. 2 innings from Davinsky, again, probably not going to be here. Inning and a third out of Pop. He is certainly not going to be here. 2 2/3 innings out of Brandon Waddell, likely not going to be here. And then 2 innings out of Rico Garcia. 8 innings on Sunday from guys who will not be here. So 8 plus the 6 from Friday is 14 plus an inning and a third. So 15 1/3 innings of the 27 innings. Think about it that way. 15 1/3 innings of the 27 innings in this series against the Yankees recorded by guys who will not be here in a week. I'm not saying that for any of the Yankee fans who are voyeuristically listening to the Rico. This has nothing to do with you. So if you're taking this as some kind of shot or an excuse, it has nothing to do with that. It's more detailing what the Mets had to kind of go through this weekend and why it was imperative for the offense to pick them up. Why winning 2 out of 3 in this series, very impressive, I think, despite the Yankee struggles, because they had to overcome that. And luckily, it feels like they're not going to have to overcome that much longer. because Sean Manaea is on his way back. Kodai Senga is on his way back. Even bullpen, Brooks Raley is on his way back. We forget that the Mets signed him not too long ago to improve this bullpen. And then hopefully at some point, Jose Butto is on his way back. And this team can get healthier. But amazing to think about the amount of innings they needed to get from guys who aren't going to be here. That's what made this series in a way tough to watch, but also like, boy, just get a game so it's not a disaster. Because coming into this series, I did say that on the Rico, just give me a win. I'll take one and I'll be happy. They end up getting two, and obviously I'm frustrated by some of the things that happened in the finale of this series. Unfortunately, the Phillies win a couple of games, so the Mets are now back to being a game and a half out of first place. But you know what? Don't even worry about that. Like, I am worried about that, but don't be over worried about it. I think it was important to survive. They ended up having a very good homestand, going 4-2 against two quality teams, despite the Yankee recent struggles against Milwaukee and New York. And I think when you look ahead to Baltimore and Kansas City, two teams that are under 500, I mean, let's just start there. The pitching will make you feel better, especially if they can get Manaea or Senga back. Because now, coming off an off day on Monday, you'll have a fresh bullpen. And they could have a really fresh bullpen because I don't know how deep the Mets will want to go with this, but Waddell, Lovelady, Pop, and Garcia, and Hagenman. Those are 5 of the 13 pitchers that they have on their active roster right now. They could all be sent out or DFA'd. Like, the Mets could really do a line change, if you will, for their bullpen and bring in 5 fresh arms. I don't think they're going to do it with everybody, but, like, I think Waddell will survive, I would think. Even Hagenman will likely survive because they're probably going to need one more game with either a bulk guy or a combo bullpen guy. I mean, now you look at Waddell and Hagenman and say, you know what? Maybe you have one game in which it's basically the tag team of both of them. But you look ahead to this Baltimore series. Clay Holmes pitches the opener. David Peterson pitches on Wednesday. And then Frankie Montas could come back on Thursday. He pitched on Saturday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It'd be on regular rest. If they want to give him an extra day, they could push him back to Friday. But they very well could go with Holmes, Peterson, Montas. And then you piece it together. Clay Holmes could come back on Sunday in the finale before the All-Star break. You could also, if you really want, have David Peterson out of the bullpen that day, because that would be 3 days rest. We don't see teams do that as aggressively before the All-Star game anymore, but it's an option. And then obviously, if Manaea or Senga are ready, you can slot him in to any of those days over the weekend. So they may need 2 starts of these 6 against Baltimore and Kansas City where they use one of these bulk depth guys. But if Senga and Manaea are both coming back, then they may not need any. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see what they decide to end up doing. But they have survived a very difficult stretch, and I do feel better about this team. I feel better about this team mainly because of their offense. Would you agree with that, Hoff? I know you were certainly down during a lot of these struggles, but to me, coming out and scoring a lot of runs has relaxed me a tad that at least they've calmed the waters after that horrible losing.
I'm not sure if I feel amazing. You're also playing a Yankee team that is just as down. I mean, their bullpen is terrible. When Luke Weaver came in the game, it was like I couldn't believe that Aaron Boone went to Luke Weaver in that spot. Like, I'm like, okay, let's go. We're gonna get a hit here. So yeah, I mean, I guess in some way you have to be able to take advantage of every situation you have. So the Mets did that. But maybe if it was like a better situation, like if there was Max Fried was a really good test for this Mets offense. So that I'll give him credit for. But there's still other situations. Carlos Rodon is a pig at times, and he just blows games up really quick. And the Mets jumped on all over that. So I was happy about that.
Well, they got a chance. You look at the pitching matchups coming up in Baltimore. They're facing Brandon Young, who's only made 3 career starts, hasn't been good. Tomoyuki Sugano, who's been kind of up and down, and Charlie Morton, a guy they've seen a lot of throughout his illustrious career where he tried to imitate Roy Halladay early on. It's not that I feel amazing. I didn't say that. I feel better. I feel more like okay about where things are, especially knowing they've got 6 games coming up before the All-Star break. Even if they're not getting Manaea and Senga back necessarily before the All-Star break, they can survive the next 6 games. And I hate to set the bar low and say I take 3-3. I kind of would, just to get to the All-Star break in a decent place. And then you come out of the break, you have to expect that not only are you getting Minaya and Senga back, but you are getting Raley back. I assume Jose Butto, whatever illness he has, hopefully he's okay, comes back. And you're facing the Reds and the Angels. So it's just, I think it's also a softer part of the schedule that makes me feel better. Orioles, Royals, Reds, and Angels before they have a West Coast trip in late July that takes you right up until the trade deadline, crazily enough. So I feel more like if the waters were rough, and they were through that horrible stretch, they have now been calmed. The seas are now calm. Not that the Mets are going to go win 6 in a row, even though they did just win 4 in a row, but the calming of the seas makes me feel better about this team.
Yeah, when you win 4 or 5 and you have, I don't want to say an easy last 2 series coming up, because nothing's easy these days, but when you have a better next 2 series coming up, I'm definitely more comfortable than I was a week ago. Last week, if you would have asked me this question, I probably would have jumped off the Eiffel Tower.
That's right. I saw the Eiffel Tower many times over the last couple of days. Celebrate your highlights with Mio Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser. Light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy. Whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot, ask for Mio Sparkling Sake by name. A new tradition served chilled, imported from Japan. Official sake of Rico Brogna. Enjoy responsibly. All right, let's pick our Rico, I'm the man now, star of the series, and our net negative. Let's just start with the net negative. Let's get the negative out of the way. I kind of lean towards Zach Pop because there's no one offensively that was abysmal, and the Mets did go out and score 21 runs, 22 runs, whatever it was, in these 3 games. So there's no one who was egregiously bad offensively, unless you just want to pick on Mark Vientos again. Vientos was 0 for 2 with the finale. He was 0 for 4 in game 2, so now we're up to 0 for 6. And he didn't play in the game before that. So, sure. I guess we could pick Mark Vientos. But I think it has to do with the pitching. And in the game they lost, it was Zach Pop who came in and immediately gave up the 3 runs. He's the one who gave up the home run to Austin Wells. He's the one who gave up the double to Giancarlo Stanton and then gave up 2 more runs after that. I mostly put it on Carlos Mendoza, but it's Zach Pop. I'm sorry. I can't be convinced otherwise. Do you want to try to argue for Mark Vientos? I guess you can. But Zach Pop is going to be DFA'd, so it'll be one of those net negatives that just goes away into the ether. But I do think it's Zach Pop. Anyone else but Pete?
I mean, it's unfortunate you have to do that, but yeah, it's definitely Zach Pop. And the thing is, too, like I think here's the thing that's screwy, right? If this is why you could double down on Zach Pop being the net negative, because they tried to get him in the game on Saturday, but they didn't get him up quick enough.
That's true.
So they had to go back to Edwin Diaz. If that was a close game today and they had to go to Diaz, they wouldn't be able to do it because freaking Zach Pop wasn't ready.
Yeah. By the way, I want to mention the Diaz thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I sort of forgot about that from Saturday. Yeah, with a 6-run lead, I think we're all reacting the same way. The problem is he is warming up, and it's understandable why he's warming up because before the Mets are breaking the game open, like, I'm thinking about going to him. Like, the game is getting – the Yankees kept fighting back, like, every time it would become not that close. So I understand why Diaz was warming up in the 8th inning. I mean, think about it. Like, Ryan Stanek comes in. They have a big lead. He gives up an RBI double. He gives up a walk. When he's facing Dominguez and Volpe with 2 men on base in the 8th inning, and at that point it is, I guess it's 11-5, 11-6 at that point. Yeah, it's 11-6. But they got 2 guys on base with 1 out. And you really have no one else to go to. So getting Diaz to warm up in the 8th inning to me wasn't crazy. Because if Dominguez gets on, all of a sudden the tying run's on deck. So, I got to win that game. Like at that point, when I have a big lead, I have to win that game. So I completely agreed with Mendy getting Diaz to warm up in the 8th inning. I think where the issue lies is once Stanek gets the back-to-back strikeouts, and he gets through the inning, and it is 11-6, At that point, I'm done. Like now I'm good not going to Diaz to start the ninth inning. Like I'm good with a 5-run lead, trying to steal a few outs. They obviously added another run on the RBI hit by Juan Soto, but he had Diaz warming up even at 11-6. I was cool with kind of having him ready to go in case. Him warming up in the eighth inning, I had no problem with. But once Stanek got out of it, I was content on rolling the dice. And look, worst case scenario, if Pop comes in, he puts the first three guys on base. Now I go to Edwin Diaz. The tying run isn't at the plate. So like with a 4-run lead, I'm just go to the closer. Don't mess around. With a 5-run lead, I'm okay. So I think that was the only mistake Mendy may have made. Now, Mendy's thought may have been, since I had him warming up in the eighth inning, I'm just going to go to him. Like he was already warming up. This isn't a video game where I just sit him down, warm him up again. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but then as soon as they scored that 6th run, it was like, hey, get Zach Pop up here. Let's see if we can get him ready in time to come in the game for the ninth.
That doesn't make sense because what's the difference? Like 5-run lead, 6-run lead. Like I would have been good going to Pop with a 5-run lead.
Exactly, 100%. So that's a Mendy thing. That's a Mendy thing for sure.
Yeah, I agree. My only difference with Mendy is once Stanek gets those last 2 outs in the eighth inning, sit him down right there, go to Pop for the ninth inning, and hopefully you could steal those 3 outs.
Stanek did pitch 37 pitches that inning.
Dude, it was insanity. It was insanity because he goes to Stanek with a big lead. And I think the thought also is, you know what? I don't want to mess around. Like, also, where else am I going? I guess he could have gone to Rico Garcia or Zach Pop at that point, and then would have had Stanek available potentially for Sunday's game. But Stanek this is why Ryan Stanek is not entering the circle of trust. Like, is he trustworthy? No. Is anybody trustworthy outside of Edwin Diaz? No. But Stanek is so up and down. Now, Reed Garrett kind of earned our trust back with what he did on Friday, but it's a trustless bullpen outside of Edwin Diaz right now.
We need a new name for the circle of trust because it's very bipolar. It's very, it's very impulsive. We have to figure out a new name for the circle of trust. And by the way, I don't know if you heard. I was listening. I was in the radio booth once the game was over, and I was listening to Keith Rad talk to Reed Garrett after that 6-out shutout. He was so emotional because he knew what he had been through that week. First, the Brewers giving up that huge home run, like that was he. You could hear his emotions coming out in that interview. So I mean, I gotta tip the cap. Guy earned a trust back a little bit at least.
He did. And you know what? Since we should get into the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series, he's one of the first guys we got to mention. I mean, Reed Garrett saves game 1. He does it by getting 6 outs. He does it by the skin of his teeth. Not really. I mean, it's not like he loaded the bases up, but he was able to get Jason Dominguez out after he fell behind him 3-0, which was scary as all hell. So we'll put him as a candidate. What he did in game 1 is certainly worthy of Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series props, but I do want to make it official. Zach Pop, you are the net negative of this series against the Yankees. All right, let's go through these candidates. Reed Garrett, 6-out save in game 1. Francisco Lindor ended up going 2 for 11. Brandon Nimmo, of course, hit the grand slam in game 2. Ends up going 3 for 10 in this series with a home run, a grand slam, and 4 RBIs. Juan Soto. I thought Juan Soto was going to be such a lock for the I'm the Man Now star of the series early on. Didn't work out that way. He ends up finishing 4 for 11. Pete Alonso ends up going 3 for 10. And really, the only other candidate is Jeff McNeil. It's Jeff McNeil versus Reed Garrett. Jeff, of course, with the game-winning home run in game 1 of this series. He ends up getting a hit in game 2. He goes 2 for 4 in game 3. That little dribbler that was called a hit. I'm not sure if they're going to change that to an error, but nevertheless, it's an RBI. So McNeil with a home run, 3 RBIs, ends up going 4 for 10 in this series. To me, it's McNeil or Reed Garrett. I'll let you go first. What?
Wait a second. I can't even believe I'm going to be the guy doing this. You're going to totally discredit Brandon Nimmo?
Oh, wait. Didn't I say I said Brandon Nimmo?
Well, you say it's Garrett versus McNeil.
Well, I mentioned Brandon Nimmo hit the grand slam. You think that's enough for him to be the Rico I'm the Man?
I mean, that basically was the tone setter of game 2. That basically won. In my opinion, it's Jeff McNeil versus Brandon Nimmo because both hits basically locked in the game. I know there was a ton more runs that were scored on Saturday, but I think that was the tone setter that kept everybody. If you listen to all the post games and whatnot, everyone was like, that home run right there, I was allowed to feel comfortable. I was able to go out there and feel good about
it. Was a huge home run. It was a huge home run.
Yeah, and so I would, because of that, I would say it's Brandon Nimmo.
Over Jeff McNeil?
They both won a game. His defensive play at the ninth inning might take him over the edge, but Brandon Nimmo, I mean, basically over the win.
Yeah,
they each won one game.
Okay, absolutely. Brandon Nimmo, I don't want to minimize the grand slam. You are right. I mean, that was, especially after the Soto bunt, which I think would have gotten a lot more criticism and attention if Nimmo doesn't hit the grand slam. Absolutely big hit. Gives him the big lead, sets the tone for the game, allows Frankie Montas to pitch with a lead and be more aggressive in the strike zone, no doubt. I think McNeil over Brandon Nimmo. And you're just ignoring Reed Garrett. You're just like, basically, he's not even a part of this.
Hey,
got
listen,
a 6-out save in game 1.
Yeah, and it was good. Don't get me wrong, but Jeff McNeil, I think, gets the edge on that because that was only thing is against Luke Weaver. So at this point in time, I'm like, it's still a game-winning home run. It doesn't make a difference.
Count the same, man. I mean, come on.
They do. I'm minimizing the Yankees right now. I'm just taking a couple jabs here and there. But I will tell you this much: McNeil's been, to me, he's been somebody who likes to golf for pitches. He hits a lot of like lazy pitches. That when he gets them, they just go, and it was awesome to be there for that moment. By the way, was incredible. So I guess if you want to say the moment I was there for, I would take McNeil, but I still think Nimmo. He kind of gave that game like he took it was the first inning.
He did
basically. The game wasn't tied after that.
I'm not disputing the importance of Brandon Nimmo's grand slam. I'm not. I'm just saying that McNeil hit a game-winning home run in the 7th inning, which was pretty damn important. I'd say more important than a first-inning grand slam. He makes an outstanding defensive play. And, oh, by the way, go to Game 3, the game they lost. Jeff McNeil had 2 hits in that game, including an RBI hit, even though it should have been an error, that had the bases loaded with nobody out, with them down by 2 runs. And Brandon Nimmo, later in the game, against Tim Hill, grounds out on the first pitch.
Right.
So...
Right.
It's not to knock Brandon Nimmo. I just think it's Jeff McNeil.
I can't believe I'm fighting for Nimmo. I don't think I've ever felt like I ever do that in my life.
Would you really pick Brandon Nimmo over Jeff McNeil as the Rico I'm the man now star of the series?
And again, the reason why I say that is because the game was over after he had hit the grand slam off of Carlos Rodon. The game was done. Like the Yankees were done. I know the game wasn't,
but Jeff McNeil hit a 2-run home run down by a run in the 7th inning.
I know, but think about the whole entire game. Like it never felt like the Yankees were close. He destroyed them in the first inning of a game where McNeil, yes, they came back, and they were down by a run. It was a big time situation. Plus the defensive play too. I get it, but when you can finish the game in the first inning and feel comfortable and confident, I'm like, dude, you saved this entire team from stress.
Wow. Well, I commend you for passionately defending Brandon Nimmo. I have to overrule you. I think it's Jeff McNeil.
Okay,
but it was a good battle, and I commend you for passionately defending Nimmo because I wasn't giving that home run enough credit. I was giving it credit, but not enough credit as you have pushed it. So,
dude, just one more thing. I'm not trying to sell you anymore on this to be the man on the man now, but Carlos Rodon is that type of pitcher where all it takes is one inning for him to unravel and it's over. And they did that, and Rodon wasn't able to go deep into a game again, which is great. So there was a lot of layers to that first inning that Nimmo was able to take, rather than Juan Soto bunting. I mean, come on. Think about where we were at just there.
No, I know. I get you. It was a monstrous home run. It really was, because that bunt pissed us all off. Let's make it official, though. Jeff McNeil, you are the man now, and I'm looking at our records. This is Jeff McNeil's first. He has not won a Rico I'm the man now star of the series. Wow. I'm going through our archives, and this is number 1 for him. Brandon Nimmo obviously did win the Rico I'm the man now star of the series in the Brewers series, so he was trying to make it a clean sweep. But unfortunately, Jeff McNeil, congratulations. You have won it for the very first time this season, as the Mets win 2 out of 3 against the New York Yankees. It's always better when you win the Rico I'm the man now star of the series in a series win. Like Brandon Waddell won it in the Pirates sweep. Doesn't feel as good. So congratulations to Jeff McNeil. So we got the O's coming up. We got the Royals coming up. This is going to be a real challenge. These games against the Yankees, I am in Europe, for those that are not aware. I'm in France. I'll be heading to Spain and then eventually back to France and then Italy. We're going to do Ricos from every country. So this is our French edition of Rico Brogna, our Paris edition of Rico Brogna. But these games, these two games that I watched in Europe, one of them, the 4 o'clock game, was a 10 o'clock first pitch, which I watched live. 10 o'clock, no big deal. I'm still kind of on New York time. The 1:40 game Sunday afternoon was a 7:40 game, which I watched on DVR because we had some great plans. Took a nice little cruise ship down whatever that river is. What's the name of the river? I was just on it in France. I'm sure a lot of people know.
The Paris River?
No.
The French River?
No.
Oh.
It's like the Nice or the Reese or the man. Now I got to look it up. I don't want to. I don't want to leave the Rico Brogna without telling you the actual name of it. Hold on. I wrote it down. I'm all over this thing. I got some great pictures, by the way. It is called the River Seine or Seine, Seine, River Seine. Either way, they're now going to Baltimore. The first pitches are absurd. So they're playing a 6:40 game, which where I'm at will be a 12:40 a.m. game. Then they play a 7 o'clock game, which is a 1 a.m. game. And then luckily they play an afternoon game in Baltimore, which is a 1:30 game. For me, that's a 7:30 game. So that's a little bit more normal, a little bit more human. Then they go to Kansas City. The 8 o'clock game is a 2 a.m. game. But then again, I'm doing this Rico right now, and it's 4 a.m. in Paris. So I guess I'm crazy. And it's not only 4 a.m. in Paris and I'm up, but here's my little guy, Jet. He's still up. Say hi.
Hey.
See? He's good to go at 4 a.m. Either way, if you want an instant reaction, Hoff has the chance to do that if the game is worthy of it, but we will try our best to continue to give you the Rico recaps at the end of each series. We do appreciate you listening and downloading. Any thoughts, you can always email us to ricob@gmail.com, ricob@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening and downloading and subscribing to another edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.